Okay, there you go. So this is a meeting of the International Legal Education and Specialist Certification Committee. And this year we've been focusing on different topics around international legal education, international students, international programs for students. And the topic today is the idea of getting a little taste of global legal education for those who can't devote a long period of time, or getting a really intense experience, or both. And so we've organized the discussion to include 4 models of an experience that's a limited time. And if you have other ideas of models, it would be great to have a discussion of that as we go along, or other examples of these models, or maybe that I'm thinking there are 4 and there are really 3. So what we have represented today includes first a summer experiential opportunity. Second, a very brief introduction to the US legal system through a conference that can be remote or in person. Third, an in-person, longer introduction. And last, what seems to me more of a traditional classroom-based course, but it's held outside of the US and it's open to students from all kinds of law schools or graduates of law schools. And so the population could be very diverse. So I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Reetz, my co-chair, who's going to introduce the folks we've invited to talk about their programs, and then we'll take it from there. But given the size, just interrupt us as we go on, talk to each other. It doesn't have to be like a Q&A from us. We can just sort of have a conversation. That's okay.
Yes, please, by all means. Thank you, Carole. Yeah, we're very delighted to have 3 really interesting folks to discuss their models with us today. We have Professor J. Krishnan, who's the Milt and Judi Stewart Professor of Law and Director of the Milt and Judi Stewart Center on the Global Legal Profession at Indiana University, Maurer School of Law. We have Oleg Kovalev, who's Associate Dean for International Studies at Duke University School of Law. And we have Professor Dana Ragrodsky, who's Associate Teaching Professor and Director of the General Law LLM at the University of Washington School of Law. And I'll stop with their titles. I suspect some of you know them already. There was a lot more we could say, but then we wouldn't have any time for them to talk. So we wanted to start out by asking each of you to maybe briefly describe your program, its history, its topical focus, and where it's offered and located. Maybe Dana, we could start with you.
Sorry, did you say Dana or did you say Jay?
I said Dana, but if anyone wants to jump in, feel
My
free.
apologies. I heard Jay.
Oh,
I'm happy to go. We run a conference or a program. We run a Summer Institute in Transnational Law and Practice, which is offered at the University of Washington School of Law in Seattle the first 2 weeks of September. So we still call it summer because it sounds better than fall. And September is gorgeous in Seattle, so everybody should come out if you haven't had a chance. This program, so in full disclosure, I myself was an international LLM student. I did come from a legal system which technically is considered a mixed jurisdiction, but most of my legal education was common law. I did have legal practice experience, and yet the transition to US legal studies had a lot of novel aspects and some challenges. Now, I did my LLM at Tulane, and Tulane offered a more traditional 4-week orientation, introduction to the American legal system in person for all the foreign trained students. When I started working at UW, and this is now more than 20 years, I was having some conversations with professors that, again, recognized that some of the students, primarily foreign trained students in our LLM programs, but not only, were facing some of those same challenges. So we decided to put together this program. The program is serving, I guess, as an introduction and orientation for students who are continuing in our programs, but it has definitely expanded. I think some of our questions will touch more on who those the constituencies are, so I'm going to hold off. But it's a 2-week program. We do offer it in a hybrid flex module for 2 weeks in September.
Fantastic. And Jay, I may have misled you with my pronunciation. Would you care to go next?
Oh, sure. Well, first, let me just say thank you to my dear friend Carole Silver and to Ryan. Thank you for co-chairing, and to the co-panelists. It's great to see some people I know here on this call. Jane Schakowsky, who I've known for a long time. It's great to see you, Jane. So I'll give you a little bit of background on our center and the programs that we run within it. So just so that you have the context. So I have the great fortune of being able to lead the Stewart Center on the Global Legal Profession, which was established in 2008. And I've been the director. I was associated with the center as heading up the international wing of it from 2009 to 2014. And then in 2014, I became the director of it. And really what we have are 3 key components of our center. One is to produce very rigorous empirical research on lawyers. Lawyers primarily who are working in the Global South, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, as well as more recently in Central Europe, but with also a focus on what lawyers are doing as you think about sort of their legal behaviors, how that is affecting what's happening in the U.S. And so that's one key aspect of the center, which is focusing on legal research, empirical interdisciplinary research as well. The second aspect is to have really strong affiliations with law schools and bar associations in these different regions of the world, where our center has faculty exchanges, we have student exchanges, we run joint programs, joint conferences, joint symposiums. We have the Journal of Global Legal Studies, which is under our center. And so as part of that, we have an annual symposium every year that invites people from across the globe, and including from our institutional partners in these different regions of the world, to contribute to that symposium. And then the third aspect of our center is really focused specifically on a student internship program. So since 2009, we have run a program where every summer we send anywhere from 15 to 25 students across the globe. They work in law firms, they work in multinational corporations, they work in civil society organizations, government agency, they work with judges. And typically, our students go to anywhere from about 9 to 15 different countries, ranging from Argentina to Vietnam. We have deep connections in these different markets. And to date, over the past, whatever it is now, from 2009 to 2026, we've sent something like 350 students across the globe every summer. These students are fully funded. They don't have to take out a dime. I'm happy to talk to you about the logistics of that. But that's really one of the key landmark aspects of our center. It's called the Stewart Fellows Program. And it's just been, I think, incredibly life-changing for the students as well as for the faculty who end up overseeing the program. So I think I'll stop there, and I'm happy to go into great detail about it, and really excited for this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great. And Oleg, last but not least, please tell us.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and thank you again for having me. Thanks, Carole, for organizing, and Ryan for organizing. So at Duke, there are 2 kind of programs that happen every summer. We call them summer programs that aim at building international and cross-cultural competencies among our students. The first one is our residential program here in Durham. which is called Summer Institute on Law, Language, and Culture. It's a 4-week, 3.5 to 4-week residential program that tends to attract the majority of the students in it are students who are about to embark on a US LLM degree at Duke or elsewhere as well. It's sort of a fairly broad cross-section of students. But it is not limited to just those students. In fact, I would say most years about 20 to 30% of the students in the program tend to be sometimes practicing lawyers, but more commonly recent graduates or folks who are still at sort of their ultimate last year of their legal studies abroad. And they're sort of trying to get a little bit more exposure to US legal education, US common law, legal modes of analysis. So that's one program. It's been in operation for well over 20 years. The second program we host is, I think, actually very unique. It takes place in The Hague, the Netherlands, and it is in partnership with Leiden University, which is, of course, one of the leading European universities. And it's a 4-week, again, residential program that's about 70% US JD students, about 30% international students. And it's a mix of Europeans and others from other parts of the world. And they come together to take 3 courses out of the 5 courses that are offered. Those are all ABA approved courses. So we're the ABA here. So happy to confirm that. And those courses are unique because they're taught by 2 different faculty members, one from Duke and one from Leiden or another sometimes partner institution like University of Geneva or others. And they really tend to focus on a particular subject, perhaps international, with an international focus, anything from international arbitration or dispute resolution or tax to international human rights. But the point of those courses is that the faculty bring 2 very different perspectives, typically sort of a US-centric perspective or common law perspective, and either European perspective, not necessarily that it has to be grounded in civil law, but it definitely is meant to contrast. And so the students in the span of one course are kind of confronted with 2 very different, often very different ways of looking at the same set of problems and the same set of facts. And again, that institute has migrated around Europe, started in Brussels, I think was in Geneva for a while. Now it's in The Hague. But for the last 35 years or so. So I'll stop here.
So these are really interesting. For a long time, I've been really interested and had a lot of fun trying to design international courses, programs, and what you're describing are sort of parts of different models. And so, Jay, what you're describing, I would say, is maybe the one I've seen least, although I know lots of schools have had summer internships, but they have a hard time sustaining them for a long period of time. So one thing that I think is, I don't know if it's unique, but it is certainly distinctive, is that you have sustained it for a long period of time. I think there's other questions I want to get to. And then Dana and Oleg's first program, those are like introduction to US law. But what I was really attracted to was that it's not just for your students. It's not just for students who go to University of Washington or to Duke. It's open to others. And I'm curious about who you get and how that works out for them. But at least it's available, which I think is quite distinctive compared to many schools which have, something that's just homegrown for their students. And then the last one that you described, Oleg, it reminds me a lot of what Georgetown Center for Transnational Legal Studies tries to do, the co-teaching, the particular focus, students from different schools, different countries, and also the Global Law School League's summer courses, summer program, which is more aimed to undergrads. Unfortunately for US students, it's hard for them to get credit. So that's one distinction from yours. But those are the kinds of things. So I was just trying to set the scene. And what I want you to keep in mind is, as we have this conversation, is sort of what's missing. What would you tweak if you started over again, or if you were going to do, version 2.0, or if you were going to give advice to somebody about, without the sense of competitiveness, about how they should organize a program along the same lines, what would you tweak? And so with that in mind, with that question in mind, I'd love for you to dig a little deeper into the demographics of who participates. From your school, going to your school, not going to your school. How old are they? How diverse are they? How many are JD graduates or JD students? And then second, talk a little bit about the selectivity, the selection process. How do they get in? How hard is it? What's the vetting like? I know a little bit of what Jay is going to say, which is it's pretty competitive. And then what criteria do you use? Or maybe it's kind of open door. And if people apply, they generally get in if they can afford it and, make the arrangements. So that's the next topic. So Dana, you started before. Do you feel like starting again?
Sure.
Okay.
I have so many things to say, so please stop me if I'm just talking too much. So in a sense, we've already been tweaking it over the 20 years that the program has been in existence, and partially it's driven by the constituencies of participants in the Institute. So those two questions are very interrelated. So as I've mentioned, first and foremost, the program is designed to provide kind of a soft landing and a warm-up for students who will be continuing into our programs. I think someone maybe needs to mute. Primarily students who are foreign trained continuing in our LLM programs, but also since we have established our Master in Jurisprudence for non-lawyers, many of those students have been taking the 2-week program. Again, our students, regardless of which graduate program they're in, are going to take classes that are integrated with 2Ls and 3Ls and LLMs and MJs. So for students in the MJ program that are coming into, they have a wealth of work experience in other disciplines, but don't have a formal legal education. So for those students, those 2 weeks has been a really good way of getting some vocabulary, again, focusing on reading cases, modules of legal analysis, all those things that seem so foreign to anybody coming into a U.S. law school. We've also had attorneys, primarily legal professionals from all over the world, who have taken this as a CLE, as a compressed way to have some basic foundational familiarity with the American legal system. Many attorneys and partners that are in firms that are doing transactional, cross-border transactions and need to have a better understanding of the U.S. court system and federalism issues and, some of the substantive issues. So we've definitely had legal professionals from all over the world. Some of them have come from our partner institutions, whether it's the Supreme Court of Japan or the Ministry of Justice in Korea or the Chinese IP office. And others have just reached out to me saying, I'm an attorney in Brazil. We do a lot of business in the US. I just want to understand a little better. And the last group, and I'm sorry, this is a slightly long answer. The last group is we have had occasionally 1Ls taking that program as a way to, again, maybe take the edge off some of the nervousness of starting law school and the familiarity with some of the basic tenets. I would love to have more 1Ls participate, mostly not so much because this is a preparation for the 1L year. Our 1L faculty are doing fabulous jobs, but because our 1L students rarely have an opportunity to be in the class with students from all over the world. And I think through the Institute, they are able to connect and really have this global environment while physically being here. Last but not least, kind of on the tweaking point and reaching a broad constituency of participants, this started as an in-person 8:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon daily program. And over time, some of it was driven by COVID, but even after COVID, when we were serving participants, and this is also why we stick with 2 weeks as opposed to longer, because it's a CLE for, professionals and others that are sometimes coming, especially for that. It's now HyFlex with a combination of recorded modules and readings, live classes that meet every day from 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific time. So that does allow those who are in Japan or in India or mostly Asia, Europe, it doesn't work so well, to join us live. And again, it's expanded the possibility for those who are working during the day, those who have care responsibilities. So we've done a lot of those tweaks. I would like to have more 1Ls, so maybe I need to redesign for that.
So just quick follow-up. About how many students do you have or did you have last year?
I think last year we had just under 50. In our largest year, we had almost 80. That got sometimes a little ruly because we do actually try to do field trips to the courthouse and to the law firm, and taking everybody on the bus on the light rail gotten a little bit adventurous.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you did ask about competitiveness or application. It's an open program. Granted, students who are continuing into our graduate programs have already gone through a very competitive process. For those who are asking me if there's any English requirements or other requirements, I say this mimics law school classrooms. Most of the people there will have, strong English skills, even if English is their second or third language. So, if you think that you can keep up with that, but we keep it open to everybody.
Great. Okay, so Oleg, part of your program is similar. So why don't you talk next?
Sure. I'll start by saying that I think the two summer programs we have very different goals. I think, and there is an overlap, but in terms of, I'll start with the size maybe of the program. So our summer program in the Netherlands tends to be about 40 students. And like I said, about 70% tends to be our rising 2Ls Duke has a joint JD and LLM and international comparative law program, which is really designed for folks who have a pre-existing and well-articulated interest in international comparative law matters, fluency in at least one foreign language, and requisite skill and background. Then again, the third of that, or about 10 to 15, maybe 10 students normally come from other countries. And then for our program in Durham, it is all international students, no JDs, and tends to be about 30 to 35 students, depending on the year. Both programs are 100% residential. We don't do online. So let's see, what else should I talk about? Oh, how selective? Both are pretty selective. I think their program in The Hague is exceptionally selective because the students who are non-Duke students need to be able to function in a graded, Duke classroom environment. And so we don't want anybody, and they receive Duke grades, and so we really want to make sure that they're successful. The program in Durham, it's not graded. And so for us, the focus tends to be on English language proficiency. We just want to make sure that the participants are obviously able to fully contribute and get as much out of it as possible. The academic piece, we certainly look at it to make sure there is enough there, but it is not as competitive as the Netherlands program. Did I forget to cover? Anything?
I don't think so. Okay. I think you did okay. Thank you. Might come back to you about a question that I forgot about. Jay?
Great. So thanks so much. There are really interesting programs going on at Duke and UW. So that's really, really great to hear. What I'll say about our program is that, as I mentioned, we send anywhere from 15 to 25. On average, it's about 22, 23 students every summer to these 14 different countries. It's primarily a 1L program, so it's students who apply right in the beginning of their second semester of their 1L year. We usually, out of our 1L class of 180, 170 students, we get about 100 students who apply. And the demographics are incredibly diverse, which we feel really fortunate to have. I mean, so on the one hand, particularly for students being placed in non-English speaking countries, we tend to look for we tend to look for the particular language of that country as one of the key criteria. Um, but frankly, what I would say is that we also are looking for students who have never left the state of Indiana. We're looking for students who have never traveled outside the Midwest. And so when we're putting together our cohort every year, we try to get a nice mix. We have on occasion sent students who are part of our LLM program. We've sent some 2Ls. We've sent students from other units at IU. So we'll have students from our public policy school who will apply. We'll have students from our business school who will apply. And so that's been also, I think, important for adding to the educational and demographic diversity of our cohort. As I said earlier, I think the key aspect and the reason why we've been able to sustain our program pretty vigorously and rigorously is because we have tremendous funding. We have just been, and if I was to give a piece of advice to per your question, Carole, for a school that's trying to start this, I mean, I would say one of the key principles of our program from the get-go back in 2008 was we didn't want students to take out any debt. I mean, we didn't think they were going to make a ton of money, but they would get a stipend, and it was crucial for us that every student that we send gets funded. And so a big part of my job as director of the center for the last 13 years has been to raise money. I mean, that's really a key aspect of our center. And we've been lucky. I mean, it's been a team effort. I have a wonderful set of development colleagues who I've been working with. If I were to sort of think about ways we could tweak the program, one of the things that I've wanted to do since the get-go is to make sure that our center, I mean, there are a number of centers across the country that do wonderful work on the legal profession. I mean, we work with several of them. I mean, we work with David Wilkins' program at Harvard Law School. We've interacted with Mitt Regan's program at Georgetown. I mean, I know Stanford has a wonderful program on legal ethics. And so we've been in sort of a loose confederation with several of these different centers. But I think one of the hallmarks of our center, going back to 2008, has been to really make a deep, penetrating move in the global South. And we've done that pretty successfully in Latin America and in Asia. What I wish and I've talked to Carole, your colleague, Tom Garrity, at length about this, which is how do we get a better presence in Africa? We have had students go to Tunisia. We've just set up an Indiana University Gateway office in Accra. We have connections deeply held in South Africa. But Africa it's been a harder market. It's a place that I work in a lot, and I'm trying to still figure out that market and how to place students there. So that's one area. I also think what would be nice is, given the fact that we send students to up to 14 different countries every summer for our pre-departure orientation, what would be really important, if I could sort of be able to do this, is to have a country specialist for every student going to their particular market. We definitely focus on cultural competencies. We talk about importance of learning the educational aspects of how one becomes a lawyer in the country that the students are going to. But having a country specialist per country for our program would be great. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But like I say, I think resources are key in this, and that's been a crucial component of our Stewart Fellows program, which is made it, I think, pretty nicely successful over these years.
Thank you.
Jump in.
Oh, yeah, Brian. We can't hear. I can't hear.
Sorry, Carol, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
No.
Well, I wanted to jump on something that Jay referred to, and which is also maybe a backwards way of approaching the initial topic that we all talked about, which is the types of challenges that students in the various programs face, and what, if any, but hopefully what big lessons they learn. And Jay, maybe we could start with you, since I think you just touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ryan. It's an issue. I mean, the fact is that, like I say, we've sent 320 students, 350 students. I can't even remember the number, but and I'd say 98, 99% of them have had an amazing time, and it's been absolutely life-changing. There have been, on occasion, situations where students have been shaken by the new culture they're in. And, whether that's issues of how workplace environment discourse occurs, whether there are cultural nuances that our students haven't picked up on and have felt insulted, or have felt like they just have not acted in the way that they ought to. That's always hard. And what I would say about that is, making sure. So that's been a big challenge. But we've gotten, I think, we've run it now in a pretty, fine-tuned manner, where we do have very few problems on that front, but it is still a challenge. I mean, how do you get someone who is of a particular mindset to go to an environment where the values and norms of that environment might be challenging to them on an ideological basis, on a political basis? Uh, that's a struggle. And what we try to do is to say, the beauty of these experiences is to have a capacious imagination, to be able to think about environments that are not your own. Of course, where students feel any sense of threats or violence or any sort, I mean, that immediately gets ratcheted up. But I think a lot of it is navigation, and how they're able to confront that really depends a lot on the administrators running the program, and I see it as really a big part of my set of duties, which is to have open communications. My staff is very in tune with our students, almost on a weekly basis. And that includes having them do journal entries, having them do check-ins, having them meet with our alums in the markets that they're working in. I mean, all of that are sort of sets of ways that our students are able to deal with what sometimes can be cultural challenges. Yeah.
Programs that are different, guessing that the takeaways for students and their challenges are probably different. Could you tell us about that?
You were cutting up a little bit. Were you asking Oleg or me?
I understood with Oleg, but because he has two programs where I'm guessing the answers might be different. I'm sorry for the bad connection.
Okay, Oleg, you want to go?
Yeah, I will go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. So before I go, I will mention too, because I think this kind of builds on what Jay had just said. As part of our program at Leighton, our 2Ls or rising 2Ls, they spend 1 month in the Netherlands, but the time before that, they also go and work abroad. Almost all of them. It is not quite, I don't think, as well resourced or well sort of supported program as what Jay has, where we don't have like a dedicated staff placing these students, but they tend to do quite well. They tend to work in 10 to 12 countries, mainly at law firms, but also within United Nations and other supranational organizations. And so a lot of the issues that Jay had flagged, I think, apply in our context as well, challenges. I think for us, for other students, for international students, the main challenge with those residential programs One is that it is the sort of, there are even more, the acclimation period, right? The culture shock period is overlaid on top of having to learn the actual, substance of the program. And so it becomes sort of, you have to have a lot of energy, I think. And so some students, especially in the first couple of days, feel a little overwhelmed because they're sometimes in a brand new country they've never been to, and they're exposed to a very different way of learning and a different way of teaching. So that is a challenge, and we do try to take a very much a hands-on approach. We do a lot of pre-program orientation activities to try to get as much of the logistical stuff out of the way. So by the time they arrive on campus, they're really ready to the best of their ability to engage with the program. I think the one benefit of doing it in the summer for us here in Durham is that there's not that much going on at the law school. We kind of have the whole place to ourselves, more or less. And so we do have space, literal space, but also administrative bandwidth to provide sort of a lot of resources and helping students from everything from like, how do I open a checking account, or do I need a US cell phone number, to how do I ride a bus, right? Like, is there a bus? Which is always a question here in Durham. So those are, I think, the biggest challenges, kind of the cultural acclimation. And then the second challenge that we've encountered, especially with some of the younger students in our summer programs who are maybe still finishing up their studies, is just the basic professionalism. I think that sometimes we forget, maybe here, most of the LLM students we have here have years of experience. Most of our JDs have worked. That folks who are maybe earlier, that they maybe have not had a lot of exposure to a professional workplace or graduate school. And so just kind of inculcating the idea of like, okay, if you're asked to do something, you actually have to do it. That you have to respond to your email, that you can't just show up in the professor's office without making an appointment. These kinds of things, I think, are a challenge. I see it as a learning opportunity for them. It's part of the educational journey that they're on, but it also means that we have to be prepared for it in a way that maybe we don't typically encounter during our kind of regular academic year.
Great points. Dana, good working with you.
I absolutely second everything that Oleg just said. And for us, right, some of the being in a high flex environment, it's constantly reminding people that this is a live session, so you need to be in the Zoom. You need to have your camera on, right? You can't just sign in and walk away. There was, and especially for us, because even though for some of those acclimation and culturalization issues that were identified, we decided to do this. I used to actually do a mock exam, a mock issue spotter exam the first few years, and students were stressing over it. So we took it out because really the goal is to give them the space to feel that this is a safe space for them to try and speak up in class, right? To try and make mistakes. So it is, they do get a certificate of completion, which is why I do keep attendance and I do make sure that they participate, but it's not graded in any way, shape, or form. Now, our students that do continue to our program are eligible to get 2 additional credits as an add-on for their American Legal System and Methods class, and that was also particularly approved by the New York Bar that many of our students are taking. So we do try to make sure that students are actively participating and not just registering and then, not doing anything. I wanted to actually make a quick comment related to what Jay was saying and came up in the conversation about the challenges for students who may not have the opportunities to travel abroad. Part of the reason why I'm hoping to expand not only this summer program, but also some of our other opportunities in the law school is because we've had a hard time sending students, definitely JD students, but also students in the graduate programs, to do exchanges, to do summer programs abroad. We used to have both an international contracting and a cross-border M&A classes that were co-taught with Tokyo University and Waseda University, respectively. So that was an opportunity. I'm always thinking about the ABA standards, right? Cross-cultural competencies, formation of professional identity. Yes, the standard about diversity, equity, inclusion, even though I know we are in a weird space right now. So trying to create those opportunities to all of our students to have these global exchanges, even if it means they're not stepping foot out. I would love for them to step foot outside of the US. It's just not realistic for everybody. Many of our students in all of our programs are, have work obligations, have family obligations. The financial cost, I completely concur that resources do matter. So I just wanted to speak to that. It's not directly related to the Transnational Institute. And I think we'll separately talk about visa challenges and other challenges. Okay.
It's next. Yeah. Yeah, that's the next question is what's changed and how do you work around it in terms of visas and sort of the legality of going somewhere else.
Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
So definitely for foreign trained students who are coming, so those who are continuing into our programs typically would have an F1 or a J1 and are truly international students, because we do have many foreign trained students who are residing in the US and in Washington. But for international students, typically they will need an F1 or a J1 visa, as most people here know. We've definitely encountered issues. I think this past summer, we've had more people online because people were simply not getting the visa appointments and were not able to get here on time. And I'm talking about, right, judges from Japan. I'm not necessarily talking about some of the countries that always face challenges. So part of being this high flex was also to try and accommodate people who are encountering visa issues. International legal professionals that are just doing it as CLE, for the most part, have been coming just using the visa waiver or a tourist visa. But what we have actually seen is that the exchange rate and the financial obligations have become more burdensome to a lot of people. And Seattle is not a cheap place. So for some, they're choosing to do the program online because they don't have to take time off work. They don't have to find accommodations or otherwise air tickets to Seattle. So visa and finances have been some of the challenges, and we've tried to address it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Oleg, so your students are going both ways.
Yeah.
Do you have the same experience?
Yeah, I want to echo what Dana said. I think for the summer program in Durham, the way we set it up intentionally so is that it falls within the 30-day grace period for the F1 and J1 visa. So for folks who are doing an LLM here in the US, with the start date that sort of roughly aligns with most of our peer school start dates, they don't need a separate visa, and so it makes it convenient for them. It's just kind of what I would call a pre-LLM. For folks who are coming just for this, many of them have utilized the tourist visa. We've sort of, when it was kind of a long and torturous process of working with our Office of General Counsel to kind of agree to that, but we feel pretty good that this is that we are on solid ground because this is not a credit-bearing program, so we do not need an F1 or J1. For folks going to abroad, two sets of issues. For Americans, there's really no issue because they all use visa waiver, and the Dutch government tells us that they don't need anything else. Like, we don't need to apply for a student visa for them with the Dutch government in order to do the program. With the more interesting element of that is students who are not from the EU or from the US, but from other parts of the world who do need visas. And for them, it is a little bit more complicated, a bit of a one-on-one, because obviously it depends on where they're coming from. We don't promise people visas, but we promise that we'll refund their money if they can't get it. Again, in many ways, now the US government is a much more challenging entity than the Dutch government when it comes to anything. international, maybe anything, period. And so, but we have, produced letters to kind of evince that this is a legitimate program. The fact that we have a partnership with the Dutch University really helps as well. Sometimes Leiden will work their own contacts within the foreign ministry to kind of expedite process. The biggest issue we had were with Chinese students who were just not getting timely action on their visas to come to the Netherlands to do the program.
And Jay?
Right. So,
Things changed?
yeah. So, I mean, we actually, because of the different countries we work in and the different regulatory regimes that exist, we've actually had to take a very nimble approach on this. And there's a lot of variation. And so let me just break down the different types of systems that we've encountered as it relates to visas. So for certain countries, getting a visa is very, very difficult. Like, for example, India. And getting to work in India has been difficult. So what we've had to do is come up with a creative way to affiliate our students with our partner institution that's near Delhi, so that they can be earning credit at the university while they're working as part of a clinical program. So we frame that internship as a clinical opportunity that our students can be a part of. There are some countries that we work in where tourist visas are absolutely permitted. And so that's no issue at all. There are some countries where what we have to do is we have to engage local counsel. It's typically at the place where our students are working, and this is in Argentina, for example, and Brazil, where the students actually are in the hands of their employers to get them the visa. And so we have these different models that exist. And sometimes it's a very sort of nip and tuck system. They'll get the visa a day before the flight departs, or they'll get it a week before. And so it can be stressful. But I think for most of our students, it hasn't been a problem. I mean, I'd say that the India issue was probably the hardest one for us. And we came up with this idea and that's why I would say for our center, it's not just the internship program that is operating independently. It operates in conjunction with the second part of our mission, which is to have deep connections with bar associations and with universities in the countries that we're working in. And that has allowed us to, as I say, create these entrepreneurial clinical programs that our students can sign up for at the host university, and then do the internship from there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Oleg?
Yeah, thanks. As Jay was talking, and something else occurred to me that I think is relevant. So another issue and challenge that we've encountered with the Leiden program is our JD students who are not U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
And that's a separate set of issues, procedural, which we've normally navigated okay. But then what I've seen recently, and if schools are thinking about their programs, they need to think about this too, is just the concern from the international students in the US have about leaving the US while they're on their J1, F1 visa, and whether or not they're going to be able to come back. And obviously for a rising 2L, that could be catastrophic. So in fact, what we have seen over the last this summer and past is that almost all of our students who had, were part of that program and had the opportunity to work abroad and to study abroad, they have chosen not to do that, and they've opted out of the program, probably correctly looking at the sort of the risk-benefit ratio, just because they cannot trust that they will be able to come back. And so that's unfortunate, but it's reality.
So I'm mindful of time, and I wonder if we should open it up for questions and comments instead of going along with our list, even though I want to get to those too. So are there questions and comments? And those of you who've been listening? No? Okay. Oh, yep. Veronica.
Hi, can you all hear me? I've been having problems with my computer. Okay, hi everybody. I work for the University of Miami School of Law, and I think your programs are all super interesting. I just have a question. I think mainly for all because I know you were talking about having the students that are admitted into the LLM come do the program like within that 30-day period. Is there like any type of requirements as far as how many hours they can do throughout those weeks, or is there like a limitation or something for that specificity, or not really?
No, my understanding is that the threshold is whether or not they're receiving credit, and because we're not
Oh,
granting them credit, insofar as the visa, if they're on a tourist visa, right? Like if they're not on a tourist visa, then there is really, I mean, there is no limitation whatsoever. What we do then is we will just adjust their start date in their visa documents on their I-20. But normally our program is about 50 hours. When you think about sort of how many hours of instruction, and that includes visits and class time. It excludes social events. We have, they go to the baseball game, they have a picnic, they do all kinds of fun things. But counting just the numbers of instruction, it's about 50 hours is sort of where we feel is our sweet spot.
And
okay. Thank
Veronica,
you.
I would just add that again, as far as we checked with our International Students and Scholars Office, right? They're the ones issuing all the documentation. This is pre-quarter for our case. So the requirement for minimum enrolled credit hours that typically students on an F or a J have to maintain doesn't apply just yet. So
Okay.
it has not been an issue. But for us, actually maintaining a very strict adherence to contact hours is driven because some of the students will later get credit that will count towards the New York bar. And the New York bar is very, as many of you know, very strict. And that's okay.
Thank you so much.
So this is a great question from Jane. What debriefing is done at your institution when students return from their summer programs abroad for other students beyond staff and faculty? And I think that's maybe aimed at Jay, but also I think we could do the opposite, the flip. Well, certainly it's also relevant to Oleg, and we could, yeah, I think you can adapt the question. But Jay, you want to go first?
Yeah, thanks so much. So we actually have the students spend an evening it's usually from about 6 to 8 p.m. Doing presentations of their internship programs to our various stakeholders. So to judges in the community, to lawyers in the community, to our donors who have contributed. But even before they get to that, they meet with our staff and they tell us what was great, where they had challenges, where we as a center could improve for the following year, where they could have done better. And so we have that vetting before they do their presentations. But the presentations are really key because we feel like we owe it to our contributors, our supporters, who have not just monetarily, but who have institutionally, inspirationally given us incredible support for them to see what the students have done over the 12, 15 weeks that they've been abroad. So it's sort of a two-part phase, Jane. And so I think it's integral part of our return to the U.S., to Indiana, as part of our program.
Oleg and Dana, you want to chime in?
Happy to go first. For us, we do a survey that of the students, participants every year, and then the students who will actually write course evaluation. So we do a global survey, just kind of trying to touch on everything from onboarding, the process, the admin element of it, and then we do the substantive survey of sort of what was covered, how was it presented. So we look at it very, very closely.
And Dana, can you share either thoughts about that or thoughts about how the cost for your program?
Yeah, so again, we in our exit I used to do a survey at the end of the Transnational Institute, and I sometimes still do, but I actually found that most of the meaningful feedback that we've received was when we asked questions about that as part of our exit survey when students are graduating, because at that point they've kind of had a longer arch of experience. But very similar to what Oleg was sharing. The cost for our Transnational Institute is $1,800. It's been $1,800 for a very long time. I resist. I mean, it's not intended primarily as a moneymaker. It's intended to mostly cover the faculty honorarium, some materials, cost of running the program. Students who then end up getting 2 more credit, and that more or less aligns with some of our programs are fee-based programs who charge per credit. So it somewhat aligns with what a per credit will be. Some of our programs are quarterly tuition-based, so there's no difference there. Students who then get additional 2 credits later on are not get charged again. So at that point, they're paying for the credits once. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, there was a related question about scholarships. So students who are continuing into our graduate programs, or the JD program for that matter, if they are receiving some sort of a tuition scholarship for their LLM or MJ or JD studies, we match it for the transnational, so we'll match the percentage. We've also tried to offer some scholarship for, Fulbrights. And also if visiting scholars or students that are coming from our partner institutions, we've definitely tried to, sometimes we can't take it completely to zero because there's a textbooks and other materials, but definitely tried to offer scholarships.
Should we wrap it up? Yeah. So thank you. This has been fascinating, and I would love to continue the conversation. And again, I invite all of you to share thoughts about how to continue and create and generate sort of an ongoing conversation about these issues, and really encourage you to come back and participate again. But thank you so much, Jay and Dana and Oleg and Ryan and all of you for making time for this. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Carole. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great
much.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.